Oh, okay, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here today. If we could all, oops. All right, folks, we are going to kick things off here today. Welcome, happy Thursday. If you would all join me and stand back up if you sat down and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. We have, oh, there it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and now with our inspirational moment, I'd like to invite up our treasurer, Jagdish Jagannath. Jagdish, come on up.
Thanks everyone for letting me deliver this today. I was thinking about it, and a long time ago, I went to a Dave Matthews Band and a John Mayer concert in Santa Barbara. And one of the things that Dave kind of said as he came up is he goes, you know, this world is really made up of two kinds of people. You've got the haves and you've got the have-nots. And as I look out over this club, you know, I really do see a bunch of haves, but it's not just a bunch of haves. It's a bunch of people that are using your talents, your resources to really make the world a better place. So I just want to say thank you for accepting me into this club. I've been a Rotarian for about 15 years in Los Angeles. Really happy to be here in Denver. And so thank you guys again.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Just keep turning this thing off. And now with the club secretary's report, I'm actually going to bring up President-elect Lisa Gulias, land specialist with Valera Enterprises, to be our secretary of the day. Lisa, come on up.
All right, thank you, President Ian. I want to recognize our guests, our prospective new members, and visiting Rotarians. So we have prospective new members, Mary Frances McKitchen, guest of Chris Hemingway, Carla Lane, Chris Hemingway guest, Tom Rhodes, Tom Woodruff's guest, and then guests of our speaker, Chloe Hammersmith and Patty Marr. All right, we've got birthdays, 2 weeks of birthdays. So now you have advance notice to send out birthday cards. Fred Diss is August 7th, Les Garrison August 12th, along with our President Ian Campbell on August 12th. And then August 13th, Bill Imig and Jim McGibney, and then August 17th, Bill West. So send out your text messages, call them, send a birthday card. All right, and a few announcements, actually several announcements. As a friendly reminder, next week is our second week of the month. So that means Alt Week. Okay, so how this is working, the whole month, the first week we meet here, this is the first week. Next week, Alt Week. Now this is our chance that we get to socialize with each other, doing really fun things with different groups. So not to brag, I'm going to be starting a theater club. Someone else is starting a bowling club. Okay. And then there's a cigar club. I'm letting you hand on a little secret, but look at the week, look at the email to sign up and how to contact everybody to sign up. That's next week. All right. So again, we're not meeting here at the Warwick next week. All right. After considerable research, Office Moving Task Force Chair and Commercial Real Estate Broker Seth Patterson and our Executive Director, Lauren Mast, recommended to the board that we stay in our current office space since it was the most economical. Most options considered were in co-working offices, which are usually priced for long-term occupancy, Oh, so staying put also avoids the disruption and cost of the move. We have executed a 3-year extension to our lease on South Colorado Boulevard. We also want to thank Pete Wall for offering a very competitive price space in his law offices, but avoiding the move was just too attractive. So also thank you to the Rotarians who stepped up to help in wanting the move, in the event of the move. Lastly, a huge thanks to Seth for volunteering his professional services and time for his extensive search. All right. Family of Rotary. It is with great deal of sadness to share that honorary Rotarian and former 3-term Governor Dick Lamb passed away July 29th at 85 years old after complications from a pulmonary embolism. Details about services are not available. Keep your eye out for a formal email from Lauren to this club, to Club 31. Former Rotarian Dick Sargent passed away July 15th at a small happy hour gathering with his Rotary Club at a restaurant in Genesee. Dick was a member of our club for 20 years before transferring to 2 other clubs in Colorado. As many might remember, Dick was responsible for starting our peach sale 18 years ago. So service information will be in the meeting recap. And finally, after a very long road of chronic illnesses, including debilitating arthritis, Rotarian Rob Clinton's mother, Charlene, passed away July 21st due to heart failure. During Rob's father's lose membership with Club 31, Charlene was involved with Rotary, including as an active participant in the Denver Rotary Bowling League during the 60s and 70s. Notes of condolences may be sent to Rob at the address in our meeting recap. Please keep the above families in your prayers during these extremely difficult times. Any more questions? All the information will be in the email recap. All right, President Ian.
Thank you, Lisa. And I just want to say, I noticed that we have to pull an extra table out today. And I just want to say how awesome it is that we're full right now and have to get another table. So thank you all for being here again. It feels really good to be back in person, I have to say. And now with a peach sale update, Mr. Geis, come on up, sir.
Thanks. So I just talked with Brian Nolan at Nolan's Orchard. It's the same orchard that we've used for 18 years, a 2nd generation family that's been helping us. And I said, how are the peaches going? He goes, Brian, right now, we're picking some of the most beautiful peaches that we have in several years. The last 3 weeks have had just the right amount of rain. And he says they just absolutely look wonderful. So coming up on Peach Pickup Day, the 14th, we do need a few more volunteers, even if it's for just a few hours. We're only going to be there from pickup times 8 to noon. If you can be there a little bit earlier, come a little bit later. If you'd follow up with us, we could use a few more volunteers. Don't worry if you haven't done it before. It's some easy stuff and we can all get it done. You just heard about Dick Sargent as the grandfather of our peach sale. And I'm going to go back up a little bit to almost 19 years ago. And Dick got our board to try this idea that other clubs have been doing. And he grabbed 2 brand new members, David Klock and Brian Geist. And he said, hey, we're going to go over to the orchard and we're going to take a look around. Well, we looked around for about 4 hours, which if you count drive time, that gave Dick about 12 hours to work on the 2 of us. And when we came back, we volunteered to do the peach sale. That was Dick. In his passing, because every time I've talked to him in past years, he always asked about the peach sale first. He's quite proud of that. And it has brought hundreds of thousands of dollars to our club. So if he were here, he would say, please buy some peaches, sell some peaches, send some peaches to people that you know in the metro area. Thanks.
Now, Brian, I have this image of you looking around the orchard very much like this. Excellent. And now we have a DRCF grant presentation. Sid, come on up.
Thank you, President Ian. Um, Good afternoon. There are two groups of people in this room. There are those who are familiar with the foundation, and there are those who are not. Some of you are active in the foundation. You have been part of the foundation board. I'm speaking to those of you here who aren't familiar with the foundation, because I want you to know that it's a very special arm of this organization, of this Rotary Club. Some would say, some have argued, it's the heart and soul of what it is that we do. And I happen to subscribe to that view. We, the foundation, reach out into the community and deal directly and donate funds, grant funds, your funds, to those in the community most in need. Jagdish mentioned there are the haves and the have-nots. And we are most definitely the haves. The foundation is our number one tool to help those in the community that are not so fortunate. Our foundation gives out money every year to approximately 14 or 15 organizations. It's made up of a $4 million corpus, and we try to reach out and help those who need it most in our community. It's your money. It's an honor and pleasure for me to recognize a new grantee for this organization and hand over a $7,000 check to Education Through Music, Colorado. The executive director, Mallory Bernstein, is here to receive the check and tell us about her organization. I can go on and tell you about her credentials. I will not, because I'm limited with time, but she's such an accomplished person, not just in the music industry, but with starting this new organization.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I am humbled and honored to be here today to accept this very generous grant. And thank you so much to Jay, who has been a supporter of ours from the very beginning. I remember him attending our first meeting before we were even a 501c3, and your support has meant a lot. And we're so excited to be here today. And I can assure you that this grant is really incredibly important to us. Even since I submitted the proposal several months ago, we have been able to grow beyond what was expected. So I'm excited to tell you a little bit about our very short history and what's to come for Education Through Music Colorado. So in 2019, we piloted programming in 2 Title I elementary schools in Denver, and we were reaching 600 children during our first year. We are just about to launch our 3rd year of programming on August 23rd, and we will now be reaching 2,500 children at 8 Title I elementary schools in Denver. So your support certainly means a lot to us. Thank you. So our model and our mission are fairly straightforward in that we partner with under-resourced schools to build sustainable music programs. I think one really important thing to note compared to many of the other nonprofits in the Denver area in music education is that we're an in-school program. So when we build these partnerships, we make sure that every single child in the school receives music as part of their core curriculum. We believe and know that music, in addition to providing students with joy and self-confidence and motivation, it also supports their learning in other areas. So really the study of music sets children up to be more successful, and we really do look at education to support children wholly and to provide them with a well-rounded education, and music is such an important part of that. I can't underestimate, though, joy and the connection that the study of music does provide for these students. And just to give you an example, one of our principals told me at the end of last spring that, students were requesting to skip recess to work on their composition projects at school. And for an elementary school student to skip recess, you have an idea of how much happiness this really is bringing to their lives. So in terms of building these partnerships, the first thing we do is identify schools without music programming. And then we look for very strong school leadership, because we really do treat this as a partnership. So we work very closely with the principals and other school administration to talk about vision and building a music program. We then hire really excellent music educators. So to start, the music teachers are full-time and they're on the staff of education through Music Colorado, and we make sure we place them in a school that's a great fit. We provide a lot of professional development and support for our teachers, which is a true pillar of our organization. Because as you can imagine, starting these programs from the ground up, for example, Colfax Elementary, one of our new partners, they haven't had music in more than 10 years at that school. So it does require a lot. And we're really excited and proud to provide our teachers with these resources so that they can build really excellent music programs. Then we also equip the classroom. So setting up the classroom with the necessary instruments and supplies so that the teachers feel that they can be successful in building these programs. And then we fully expect and hope that music is really integrated in the school's culture, so that when you walk down the halls, you're hearing music, of course, coming from the classroom, which is just an exciting addition in itself. But we also, we make sure that there are performance opportunities, which are so important for the students and a really important way to engage communities as well. We're so excited to see the impacts socially and emotionally as well for our students. Beyond the teacher, once they're settled in the program and the foundation has been built, we expect our teachers to be hired by the schools. Timeframes can be a little bit flexible because some of these schools are in very challenging financial situations. But for example, Tre Vista Elementary, which is in Sunnyside in Denver, last year at the end of the school year, the teacher had been there for 1 year, built an incredibly robust music program, and the principal told us she just couldn't imagine a music program as great as it was, and she was able to hire this music teacher after a year. So that way the programming can be sustainable beyond our involvement, in which point we do continue to mentor and provide professional development for the teacher and the students. But it's something, again, that the principal relayed to me that's really sticks with me as we think about what our impact is. This principal was observing a second grade classroom to check on a particular student who unfortunately has experienced a lot of trauma at home and subsequently has some behavioral challenges. And the principal said she heard the student sing for the very first time in music class, and apparently had a very beautiful singing voice. And she just said, if it weren't for music class, maybe no one would have ever heard him sing. So very, very excited and honored. And as I mentioned, we piloted in 2 schools. Last year, we were in 4 schools. This year, we're in 8 schools spread out all throughout Denver. And thank you so much for your support to make this possible.
Don't forget this. Don't forget this. I mean, it is what you came for after all. And thank you so much, Mallory. And speaking as somebody who's only A's in high school, we're in band and music theory, I can speak to the confidence level that provides as well. Next, we have the good news bucket with DRCF trustee Jim White, retired CEO of Denver Machine Shop. My mic goes, sir, and I'll get you the mic.
Well, I think that Mallory and Sid said it all. That's what we do. And so this year, first half of our fiscal year, the money that you donate for your good news into this bucket actually goes to our own Denver Foundation. So that's exciting. So to know that. I'm going to start it off myself. There is an organization, you may not know this, but there is an organization that I've participated more in and been involved in longer than the Rotary Club of Denver, which has been over 50 years. So this other organization is called the Denver Mining Club. And I have to apologize because this is actually the name of our international organization. It's the Royal Order of Ragged Ass Miners. And I was lucky enough to get Lisa to join this week. And so she is now a member of the Royal Order of Ragged Ass Miners. And I'm going to donate my $20 in form of a credit card when we're done. So anyway, let's give her a hand. Now, All right, so we don't have a whole lot of time, but I would like to have you guys all contribute. Here's Carter back here. Let me walk back here and give him an opportunity.
So definitely don't want to compete with the peach sale. We're laser focused on that. But after the peach sale, September 25th is the Denver Century Ride. Part of that is the Woohumanity Challenge. That is District 5450. It's a bicycle challenge that's going to be anywhere from 100 miles. You can ride 10, 25, 35, whatever. But what I'm going to be doing after peach sale, and actually right now, is just recruiting members of our Club 31 team. Our members are so far Jim Goddard, Colleen and Brad Kozad, Alan Friedberg, Pete Wall, Jim Mack, Andre Van Hall, Ryan Sweet, and myself. So if you can't make it that day, you can do it yourself as well. But more details to follow. You can go to woohumanity.org and get more information. Call or email me. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Carter. And I saw a hand up over here. Here we go. Joy?
So I just wanted to express my gratitude to the foundation for this gift to the education through music. Mallory, one thing Mallory didn't say is that we are looking for volunteers in many different areas of help. We're definitely interested in getting more people involved from this club into the foundation. So anybody who would care to get some more information on it, please reach out to Mallory or myself. Thank you both.
Thank you very much, Jay. Okay, anybody else that would like to contribute? Here's Lisa over here. We don't collect money at the mining club, but maybe they do here.
All right, I'm a ragged ass miner now. Thanks to Jim, but there is one thing that I want to say, especially to the guests. This was an opportunity because I met Jim at Rotary. So you get to know each other. You're invited to other things. You make great friends. So got my $20.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, we have any more hands? Oh, here's one back here. Okay. Mac West, here's the mic.
There's the money. Well, consistent with this program that was so wonderfully described to us, I have to let you know that I'm just starting a new project in Oakland, California, which is the Museum of Jazz and Art, which is going to be a very interesting opportunity to bring together some aspects of culture that complement each other, but we all don't know about it.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, anybody else would like to make an announcement? Somebody's got to talk about peaches. I know we have to do that. Anything else? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to give this back to President Ian.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, that was beautiful. Keep doing this. To our speakers, just avoid this thing. It's got a hair trigger. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim, and everybody that contributed to Good News. I will also toss $20 into the kitty on behalf of Education Through Music. I think it's an awesome program. Great what you're doing. So that's my good news for today. And now, with our program introduction, we have program co-chair Peg Johnson, retired principal, Business Acquisitions, LTD. Come on up.
Our speaker today is Bob Pence, who served for 30 years with the FBI. He retired as the special agent in charge of the Rocky Mountain News Division headquarters in Denver. Since then, he's traveled around the U.S. and abroad, consulting in matters of crime and terrorism, and serving as a media consultant on public safety issues to national TV networks and local organizations. Bob is a member of the FBI National Executive Institute and the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Sheriff's Association, and various law enforcement agencies in several states. He also serves on a variety of charity foundations, law enforcement boards, committees, and councils. And after his talk is finished today, at the end of our meeting, you can find his book out on the table out there called My Non-Political FBI, From Hoover to a Violent America. This will be available for purchase. He'll be signing the copies, and 20% of the profits from today will go to our own Denver Rotary Club Foundation. Bob.
Sort of on a victory tour these days. I had to carry a gun for about 60 years for the military and 30 years for the FBI, and now almost close to that for public safety for various law enforcement agencies around the world, and in a lot of opportunities to speak to and consult with public and corporate type public safety ventures. When I got in the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover was the director, and he really had a reign. He was a 50-year man, the only FBI director at that time, and I was privileged, I guess. I was not always loving it, wasn't always fun, but it was always an honor to work for Mr. Hoover. He was a very demanding director, and we got that point when I finished my training class at Quantico, and we had 2 counselors, and each of those counselors' virtual career depended on how well these candidates got through the training. And we met Mr. Hoover. That was the last thing we did at FBI headquarters in Washington before we went out to our various first assignments. And the counselors sort of sheepishly said, now, Mr. Hoover doesn't like people with sweaty palms. He considers sweaty palms a sign of weakness. He wants his agents to have a firm handshake. So here we were, and here were the 2 counselors with a big sack of talcum powder. A lot of people find that hard to handshake. And I was off to New Orleans. New Orleans was my first assignment. I thought it was just sort of a random At the time, it was close to where I grew up. It wasn't my town, it was Brookville, and nobody's heard of that, I'm sure. But the word I found out later was our first assignments were not really random. I got in at the time that the Civil Rights Acts were being signed, the 56 and the 60. And Mr. Hoover was, I didn't know this personally, but the rumor was that Mr. Hoover met with Reverend Martin Luther King, and Dr. King was concerned that if the FBI were to enforce the Civil Rights Acts in the states in the South, that they might be biased because they're Southerners. So in an abundance of caution, Mr. Hoover told the training division and told the assignment people, why don't we, if we got agents graduating for the next few classes and they're from the North, send them south. So I got New Orleans. And I was very pleased with that because New Orleans, you know, is an exciting place with great menus and a lot of action, a lot of fugitives. my informants were girls that slid on poles a lot during the night. So I had to interview them a lot of times during the day. So Louisiana was one thing, but the New Orleans division also covered Mississippi. And since I was single at the time, I got sent up to Mississippi a lot. And every time I went, it was for one thing normally, and that was civil rights. I got involved in church bombings, arsons, hangings. And they didn't like us up there. They thought we were the Federal Bureau of Integration. And we were very sensitive to the waitresses in the hotels. We weren't always welcome in the sheriff's offices and law enforcement because they had a system and they were not very eager to give it up. So I saw things in Mississippi that I didn't see in Louisiana, really. A lot of instructions about to get on the bus and where they did this and where they were not allowed to do that. But we were there to enforce that law, and we did. The Klan was mean. We fought the Klan hard. It got pretty ugly. We had to import some of our agents from Chicago and other places where they were accustomed to working tough things like mob type things. So I remember one time, one of our agents who lives in the South, wife went out to the mailbox one day, opened it up, and there was a big rattlesnake in there. So Mr. Hoover said, we are there to do our work and we will not be determined or kept from doing it. So we brought a lot of people in. And then the incident that really hit the fan was the killing of 3 civil rights workers who came down from the north, and they were killed, and then law enforcement was involved. And as a result of that, a field office was established in Jackson, Mississippi. So a lot of the New Orleans pressure was a little bit relieved because Jackson now had its own office. Otherwise, I was always traveling to Jackson or one of the other small towns in Mississippi. And every time I went up, I had a camera in my car that went from the very back of the car all the way up through the car to the front window. And you know what it was for? Every time I went through a Mississippi county, I was requested to stop at the county clerk's office and photograph voting records because we were there to ensure that everyone is going to have the right to vote. So with all of that, it was very wearing, and a lot of times I'd get back to New Orleans late at night, and the only way I could even stay awake going across that 26-mile bridge that goes from Mandeville over the one part over the Lake Pontchartrain. I'd have to turn the siren on, and Mr. Hoover, that's another thing. Mr. Hoover did not want to spend money, taxpayers' money, to air condition our bureau cars. So I had a car without air conditioning. He didn't want any extra radios except business radios. So I was hooked up to the state police everywhere from Mississippi, Louisiana, everywhere. And that's the only thing. I could talk to people, but I couldn't listen to any music because he didn't want any expenses for any kind of commercial radio music in the car. So I'd put all the windows down, put my head out the window and turn the siren on. And I got home safely every time. What did I learn from that? I learned BLM, Black Lives Matter. So what we hear today, for for us, for the people that worked the civil rights movements in the South in the 60s, it's nothing new. Right. I was asked the SAE. He said, "You're doing a good job, and you did very well when you came through training class at language ability." And he said, "Mr. Hoover would like to know whether you have any reason that you can't be transferred now from New Orleans out to California." Excuse me. And go through 1 year of training to learn the Chinese language. I had never even eaten a Chinese meal, I think, at that point. And then he looked at me and smiled and he said, "Bob, if Mr. Hoover wants you to go to California to learn Chinese, believe me, you don't have any reason not to." So there I went. So I learned Chinese for a whole year, submerged into it. We didn't do anything but speak Chinese. And I knew where I'd get transferred after that. And I was. I got sent to the Big Apple. And I worked espionage, counter-espionage against the communist Chinese empire. But New York is the biggest FBI office we have. There are more than 1,000 agents there. And they have a lot of other activities going on. So I can't talk about a lot of these espionage cases. But I can tell you it was a place where I had a lot of other things because I was still single and I was sent day and night somewhere to do something. I remember I was asked to be in the escort detail for several world leaders who were coming in. I know I was asked by Secret Service to be part of the detail for Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India. She came through. And I spent 2 or 3 days with her everywhere she went. The FBI is the backup. If there's any assault, injury, death to the President of the United States or any visiting foreign minister or head of government, anything happens to that, the FBI immediately assumes responsibility to do the investigation. So I was with her, and then one night or afternoon at the office, I was asked whether I would like to go to a Broadway show that night. And I said, what's the deal? Well, there's something, excuse me, there's something going on, and we're sending a few agents over there. So I went over and enjoyed the show, and afterwards, along with Secret Service and all, we were led up to a special point up in the gallery area. And it was in order to meet President Richard Nixon. He had just been elected president, but he was in that period where he hadn't really taken office yet. So it was at the end of the year. Very congenial, we interested, had a great talk with him. And as you know, he didn't turn out too well. So that, but anyway, there are so many interesting stories that in preparing to speak to a group, it's awfully difficult to say what you want to say and what you don't. But I'll tell you another one. I went, eventually got to Kentucky. And in Kentucky, as soon as I got there, we had an emergency situation not a teenage, but a child was kidnapped in Independence, Virginia, down right on the border with Kentucky. And the little girl was taken by an escaped federal prisoner, highly armed and highly dangerous. So we moved immediately because we were getting a call from the Virginia FBI saying the parents had just got a demand call from the guy, and he's down in a park in southern part of Kentucky with his kidnapped little girl. So we brought our agents in from all of our satellite offices all over Kentucky to get to converge on the park. And they spotted her and him walking in the park. It was starting to get dark. The SAC, I was number 2 at that time, which we call the ASAC, Assistant Special Agent in Charge. So I went I went with lights and siren 150 miles down into the southern part of Kentucky, and he flew in Bureau plane. We got there, excuse me, just before dark. And I better get a drink here. We got there just before dark, and the agents in there, we had one of our female agents, and that was my first experience with one of our females. Mr. Hoover did not want female agents until he passed away in 1972. We had no female agents, but we had one, and she wasn't even an agent. He promoted her to agent, and then she quit. But he did not think females should be FBI agents, carry guns and do that. But we had one, and she was with us down in southern Kentucky. And what happened, they saw him and they thought, we better not wait till dark because we'll lose control of the situation. So eventually what we figured is we put them into park workers' outfits and gave them a vehicle that just said park on it, no law enforcement. So they rolled up behind the bad guy and the victim, and they got out on either side, and they approached his vehicle, which was a stolen vehicle from the parents of the girl he kidnapped. And the male agent went up on the driver's side and said, can we help you? And the female went up on the other side. And as soon as he said, can we help you? He said, FBI, you're under arrest. Guided, tried to reach back for part of his arsenal. He was heavily armed, and he got a little tap on the head by the FBI agent's weapon, and a successful arrest. At the same time, simultaneously, the female jumped into the other driver or the passenger side window, grabbed the little girl in one, I don't know how she did it, in one motion. She has the little girl out on the ground, and she's covering her with her body. I stayed, a lot of the people, after we successfully made the arrest, a lot of the people went back to their divisions. I stayed in the lodge there with the little girl. She was kindergarten, not a kindergarten, maybe a couple years older. And she was watching cartoons, and so I waited and waited. And about midnight that night, suddenly this convoy came with her little town, had the mayor, it had the Virginia State Police, it had all her family. It was almost like that town was replaced and coming in the door of the room where I was with the little girl. I learned two things on that trip. And I have a lot of these experiences, but I just don't have time to get into too many. But I learned two things. One, I learned how valuable our female agents are and will be. And now we have about 20% of our force, our females. So we have about 13,000 FBI agents who carry guns, and about 20% of them are females. But the other thing I learned, I took a lot for granted about people. And I think that night I learned just how valuable one small little person is, how valuable our people are. And when that whole town came in there, I almost was in tears myself. So the next morning, they're getting ready to go back to Independence, Virginia. And I asked her, I said, is there anything you'd like? Is there anything we can do? And she finally told me, whispered to me, well, when we were walking through the gift shop of the lodge with that guy yesterday, I saw this Daniel Boone coonskin hat, really nice. So here's the park manager with us, all the officials of the park were there too. And he jumps up and he said, follow me. So we went up and got out, went off to the gift shop, got her coonskin hat. She was very happy, and the family then went on back to Independence, Virginia. And then I went back to not Charlotte, but Louisville. I went back to Louisville, but I went a lot slower than I had come down there. So that's one adventure that really means something to me, and I like to keep it in mind. I'll give you one more. Let's see what the time is. I'll give you one more, and then I want to talk about something that's not so happy. I got my first assignment as SAC. I was sent to Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I got there, I had a press conference like we usually do to tell the state what the FBI priorities were. And I mentioned all the priorities, but somehow the media twisted one thing, because one of our priorities was corruption. Corruption and white collar crime and bank robberies and all that. Well, anyway, the news came out saying that I was considering the state of North Carolina corrupt. And I got a little feedback from the governor. Though, what happened? I apologize. I said, well, that wasn't what I said. That's not correct. I just said that's one of the FBI priorities for everywhere. He said, oh, I understand. And eventually we became really good friends. It wasn't a problem, but what happened? I was flooded with mail and emails from people saying, you're absolutely right. And here's something you really ought to know about. So we started one undercover operation down in the southern part of North Carolina. And we thought it would be sort of limited because we were setting up guys that were buying stolen goods. Long story short, when we were finished, we had arrested a judge, a legislature. We recovered about $1 million worth of stolen property and heavy equipment. We had a lot of drugs. We had a few incidents that would have caused, I think, a homicide if we hadn't brought it to an end. But anyway, we brought it to an end, and it went all the way up to information about the lieutenant governor, and we turned that over to the state of North Carolina for that handling. So that's the type of stories and the type of incidents that you run into. I had. And you meet a lot of interesting people. I spent one nice afternoon. You remember the singing group, the Bee Gees? One time I was at headquarters and they called me, said, Mr. Pence, could you do a special tour for a special group? We have tour guides, that's all they do. But when you get a special group, they'll call one of the supervisors and say, would you do this? I said, sure. So I spent the whole afternoon with the Bee Gees and their lovely wives and girlfriends, and had them shoot the machine gun and all that. I remember I got invited one time at Jackie Gleason's house for dinner down when I was in Florida. So you meet a lot of interesting people. I think I probably met all the presidents from Nixon through the time I retired. I probably had some situation where I met every president, and probably a lot of other interesting people. I met Billy Graham and was invited up to his house in Montreat, North Carolina. And then I became very friendly with him. He was here, he had one of his big deals here in Denver, and he wanted me to come over to his place while he was here. So I always enjoyed that. And I really, when I speak with Billy Graham, it was like I was sitting there. He's a tall guy, and he'd cross his legs, and that smooth North Carolina accent. I could visualize, and I don't know why, but I always thought I was talking to Abraham Lincoln. He was a classic gentleman with a lot of very smart things to say. But anyway, I want to move now, because of the time, to a little bit about a problem that's happening right now all over this country. And it's very sad. It's deteriorating, and it's the violence in America. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite so bad. I get, because I do a lot of speaking, a lot of consulting, I do cover, and I get notifications from Chicago, New York, anytime some bad thing happens in New York. And I have to tell you, and you just can't believe it. We have people beheading their mates. They've got a thing going now where there's every night a shooting, and if there's not somebody killed in one of the 5 boroughs of New York every night, it's unusual. So they start clamping down a little bit on the weapons. Now the guys are using knives and even ice picks. And what they like to do is walk down the street, and they see somebody they think is worthy of a hit. They'll just walk up behind them and hit them as hard as they can to see if they can knock them out or kill them. And they're doing it, they're walking up now, and they're slicing the side of their face. And now they're in the subways. And what they'll do is slice people, and then they'll push them off the subway platform. They like to go for elderly people. And because of some of the racist stuff that's going on right now, they're going a lot after minorities and Asian. Because of the deal with the pandemic, the bad guys don't think so. They might blame the Chinese. So know what? They see anybody that looks Oriental, they're going to try to slice them. That's going on every day. What's happening is it's affecting the law enforcement guys, because they're quitting or committing suicide. Hardly a week goes by that one of the New York cops doesn't commit suicide. It's a terrible situation going on. And I think it's a liquor problem. I think they need liquor. And when I say liquor, I mean LCR. Love, care, respect. This country has really lost its respect. There are so many domestic things. People are husbands killing wives, wives killing husbands, and they're killing children. Right now, even in Times Square, which everybody's probably familiar with, they have gun battles going on there, mostly gang related, mostly young people. And they're hitting innocent victims. They want to get one guy maybe who just shot somebody last night, and they want to hit him, but they don't care about the collateral damage. All they want to do is shoot a lot of bullets at them. And this is going on. I'm talking about New York, but it's everywhere. But there's a war going on, and it's against the police. And I think the respect in some cases goes both ways. You know, I don't know where it started or how it started, but I think some of the things police do, or certain police do, causes it. But I'm going to tell you, there's one thing in common, because I review a lot of body cameras and a lot of dash cam cameras. And I have to tell you, there's one major thing, if it changed, it would eliminate a lot of this violence. And that is, these people don't take an order from a legitimate officer of the law who's got the power to take their life. So they say, usually they do it in a very businesslike way. Sir, would you keep your hands on the steering wheel, or would you get out of the car, please, or would you do this? They don't come at them and yell at them. And the next step would be, if they don't do it, what they're going to do then they start to get into profanity. And then, but I can tell you, every one of these is going to result in a chase or a shooting. And if that guy reaches in the car, these days, the police are going to shoot him, because they're getting assaulted, they're getting ambushed, they're getting, it's gotten so bad that the police are shooting too quickly, but they're shooting too quickly because they sense an immediate threat against their lives. I've seen these videos where 3 cops have a kid standing there. He's just a young kid. And they say, take your hands out of it, get away from the gun. He goes for the gun and they shoot him. And a lot of these, especially when it's a kid with a toy gun and he aims it at the cop and the cops are shooting them, that's going to ruin 2 lives. It's going to ruin the kid, but you're finding that the police that get involved in these shootings like that, it ruins their life. They need counseling probably for the rest of their life. So that's it's a sad problem. And I'm going to say, they need LCR. They need the love, care, and respect, and they mostly need the respect. I think we have. Well, I'm going to take a couple more minutes and tell you that the one thing that I think we have got to do better, because what's happening in our country is that we have fallen into what a writer and a poet back in the 19th century, 1800s, Carl Sandburg. Anybody ever heard of Carl Sandburg, the American writer? He hit it right on the nose one time. When one of his quotes is, when a nation goes down or a society collapses, there's always one thing that you can figure. They forgot where they came from. They lost sight of what brought them along. And this is part of a speech that I'm doing now, but I'll abbreviate it. I can think of 3 good things to demonstrate this. One would be this cancel culture that we're looking at. If we don't remember the bad things that have happened, America doesn't always do everything right. So we've got the Civil War, and one side won, one side lost. So does that mean that we have got to go to the side of the losers, to the generals and to the people, the president of the Confederacy, and not just, we've got to be able to remember these things so that we don't repeat them. So I don't think that the cancel culture is a way to go. I think the FBI has just run into it. You know, I think at a certain high level in that last election, a certain group of FBI agents right at the top, this doesn't, as far as I can tell, this doesn't involve the field operations at all, but right at the top, I think they stepped over the line into politics. They'd forgotten why Hoover took over the Bureau in 1924 to get rid of the political hacks. And I think that's one thing we got to straighten out. And then the last thing I'm going to say is, and not so much in a religious sense, but I think in a realistic cultural sense, I think we've forgotten to bring God with us into this. You know, God came over with us when we found this country, and we had God going strong. In 1954, we added under God to the Pledge of Allegiance. In war, we were saying, God is my co-pilot, or praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. It was all God related. And now we're trying to take God out of it. It's no longer Merry Christmas sometimes, it's Happy Holidays. It's no longer Happy Easter, it's Happy Spring Egg Hunt. It's just something that I think we need to get God back into it. And that's where I need to leave you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time with us today. In honor of your time here today, we are going to be giving a donation to the polio efforts that Rotary is going after. And thanks to your time here, 100 and the 2-to-1 match from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, 100 children will be inoculated against polio. So thank you so much for being here. And Lauren would like to thank all the former servers in the room who were able to help step up and clear things away. You know, she said that she had hoped that I would do more, but you know, apparently whatever. But no, seriously, it's amazing that we actually went over our guarantee today, which is awesome. And so again, it's great to see everybody back here. So keep coming back, because we're gonna keep the guarantee running. So keep coming back, and we'll keep that extra table in here for you too. It's kind of like Motel 6. We'll leave the light on for you, right? And as a final reminder, next week is Alt Week, what we're calling Alt Week. So these are alternative meetings in and around Denver. I'm hosting one, Lisa's hosting one, Shannon's hosting one, Matt's hosting one. Is that 4? Yeah, that's yeah. And so, yeah, so keep an eye on your email so that you can check out what's going on around town with Rotary and see what you can get involved in, see what you can join in. If you'd like to step up and host something, you know, there's still availability to do that too. And so you can come see me after the meeting. But keep in mind, we're not here next week. So look at your email, go on an RSVP to check out what you want to go take part in next week, because we're going to be having some good times. And with that, we can wrap up with the Rotary 4-way test. Do we have that up here? Here we go. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And with that, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. that's something that Lisa would be totally on board for too. And probably come up with all sorts of other ideas that, for things that could happen as well. So, you know, but, yeah.
We went to that last week.
Nice.
Friday.
Okay.
Yep, so,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. For sure. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Very cool. And our lunch is tomorrow.
Our lunch is tomorrow.
Yeah. That's right. I'm stoked. I'm stoked. Yeah. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Your new member lunch, even though we've known each other for like I don't even know how long, but still, you get a new you're a new member, so you still get a new member lunch with the president.
I'm gonna take full.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I ever do on our team. Remember we had
That's yeah, right, yeah. That's right, yeah, absolutely, yeah, for sure, love it, love it. Yes.
Thanks so much for your support, both of you.
Absolutely, always. Yeah, looking forward to being there. All right, perfect, we'll see you in a little bit then.
Sounds
All right,
good.
cheers.
See you, Mike. Thanks
See you.
again.
Of course. Yep. I'll see you again.
Did I tell you that I'm doing that, by the way?
I was getting ready to ask.
So every time a new member comes on, and you should probably know this. Every time a new member comes on, one of the first, like I'm reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'd like to take, on behalf of the club, I want to take you out to breakfast, dinner, lunch, or whatever, to chat, get to know one another, and figure out where we can plug you in, right? So
Can I officially add that to the red badge list of things to do?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I think that's a great
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. I mean, that's what my president did it when I joined the San Diego club, and it was like, oh, dude, this is kind of cool. I mean, it's just like kind of a big deal to get to spend some have breakfast with the president. So,
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So very cool. All right, brother. Well, I will see you in a few hours then.
All right.
All right, cheers.
Peaches and Prosecco.
That's right. I'm stoked for it.
I am too.
New style.
Oh, yeah. Acquisition. Here's this thing.
Mike, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Sure, my pleasure.
Oh my gosh, it was weird coming to a meeting and I actually had a minute to take care of all of these other
To be able to
things.
do the other things that you want
Yeah.
to do. All of the wiring and this stays, is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Excellent. And so, are we going to get a bigger room?
What?
Are we a bigger room, or we're just gonna add more?
We're gonna add more tables. Well, these tables can fit 8 to 10 people at them. I only have them sit 6 so that it looks like the room's more full. So we don't look like we have a very empty meeting.
Nice optics.
I know. I'm all about that. Oh, he's living in Texas right now with his brother because his landlord sold the place that he and his roommate were living
I
in.
remember him talking about
And
that.
instead of him wanting to sign another lease, he figured, well, I can work virtually, so I'm going to live with my brother for free in Texas for a little bit. And so he'll be back next month when he's either moving in with his girlfriend or signing a lease at somewhere else. So he's just out of town.
I
Essentially.
figured he was.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure because I had not seen or heard anything. I was like, I hope he's okay, that there's nothing wrong.
Okay, let's plan a date for these balloons.
Okay.
Because I gotta let you know, when it comes to meetings, I absolutely have to have advance notice.
Yep.